Trauma. That one word can invoke a feeling of dread and deep concern. For many, when you hear the word trauma, you envision a situation such as a serious car accident where emergency medical responders are called, people are being transported to hospitals in critical condition, and they are barely hanging on to life. In other words, many associate trauma with being physically injured, but trauma is much more than that. According to the Center for Nonviolence and Social Justice, the word trauma is used to describe experiences or situations that are emotionally painful and distressing, and that overwhelm people's ability to cope, leaving them powerless. The TED Talk I chose is titled How Childhood Trauma Affects Health Across a Lifetime, which was given by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. I chose this TED Talk because the main idea presented, that childhood trauma can adversely affect one's lifetime health, is interesting and had a profound effect on me. I have a vested interest in this theory because I have family members who have been affected by childhood trauma, and I have witnessed how it has affected them. The knowledge and medical data presented by Dr. Burke Harris aid in making her point of view sound incredible. I also enjoyed her overall demeanor while she was giving her speech. Some would think that a medical speech would be very dry and quite frankly boring, but she was the opposite. Dr. Burke Harris presents the idea that exposure to traumatic events in childhood, such as abuse, neglect, or being raised by a parent who struggles with mental health or substance abuse, can affect the developing brains and bodies of children in such a way that they develop and are more susceptible to lifelong health issues. Those health issues can include chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, hepatitis, depression, suicide, lung cancer, and ischemic heart disease. She is not just making an educated guess or providing conjecture. She knows what she's talking about. She talks about a study done called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, where 17,500 adults were asked about their history of exposure to adverse childhood experiences. The study found that the more you were exposed to adverse childhood experiences or trauma, the worse your overall health outcome was. This even holds true for people who do not engage in high-risk lifestyles as adults, because high doses of adversity in childhood not only affects brain structure and function, it also affects the developing immune systems and hormonal systems. The conclusion is that early detection and treatment will aid in reducing the health effects of childhood trauma. I had someone very close to me that suffered from many childhood traumatic events. That person is my mother. She was 42 years old when she passed away. When my mom was 8 years old, her father passed away. She is the youngest of 6 children, and when her father passed, her whole world fell apart. Her older siblings began experimenting with drugs and alcohol. Her own mother, my grandmother, left my mom basically to fend for herself. She would tell me that most of the time she was left with no food, no one to make sure she got up in time for school, no one to help her with her homework. She would not see her own mother for days at a time, and she was basically abandoned at 8 years old. Because she experienced such traumatic events, she made sure her own children did not. My own childhood was full of great experiences and very fond memories, and that is due mainly to my mother. Then, one day, she began getting sick and feeling very ill. She went to the doctor, and eventually she was diagnosed with heart disease and her kidneys were failing. Less than 3 years later, she passed away. My mom was the healthiest and most responsible person I knew. She never smoked cigarettes, she never drank alcohol, she exercised regularly, and she ate healthy. I always wondered why she got so sick, seeing as how kidney failure and heart disease do not run in the family. But after listening to Dr. Burke Harris's speech, everything started to make sense. Because she was experiencing childhood trauma in such a way at a young age, she succumbed to the adverse effects in adulthood. What also drew me to this TED Talk is the fact that Dr. Burke Harris made her overall speech and presentation very relatable. Her tone of voice, which is one of authority and expertise, is very controlled but not overly aggressive or intimidating. She has an inviting presence, which made me intrigued and wanting to listen to her speech in its entirety. Sometimes speakers can be long-winded and trail off, and then they begin to lose the attention of the audience, but Dr. Burke Harris does not. She also doesn't use too many technical terms and presented the medical jargon in a way that you don't need to be an expert or have extensive medical knowledge to fully grasp the concepts in her speech. The TED Talk by Dr. Burke Harris presented a different and interesting medical perspective, that childhood trauma can adversely affect your overall lifetime health. When I started my search for a TED Talk, I did not know that I would find one that would resonate so personally. My mother, having suffered childhood trauma, succumbed to the effects in adulthood, and I was witness to that. The background information and the study presented by Dr. Burke Harris made her reliable and convincing. She does know what she is talking about. The manner in which she presented her speech is also very captivating and made the content that much more enjoyable and rememberable. Miss Danielle Burnock, author of Emerging with Wings, A True Story of Lies, Pain, and the Love That Heals, wrote that trauma is personal. It does not disappear if it is not validated. When it is ignored or invalidated, the silent screams continue internally heard only by the one held captive. When someone enters the pain and hears the screams, healing can begin. In other words, only when one acknowledges their childhood trauma can you truly begin to heal and hopefully lessen the health of issues that come to fruition in adulthood.